Hello, welcome to the lesson on adding and subtracting real numbers. So I would like to start by stating that when calculating the sums and differences of real numbers, there are rules to follow. But let me go ahead and also state that the calculation of numbers is done by using the absolute values of the numbers and then assigning the correct sign to the result. So let's go ahead and talk about absolute value for a moment. So what I want to state about the absolute value is that the absolute value of a number is the distance a number is away from zero on a number line, right? So the absolute value is always positive or zero, okay? So let me go ahead and plug in a couple more numbers here. So we have -1 and we have +1. So if I were to ask you, how far is -2 away from zero on the number line, what would you say? So if you move your point from -2 to zero, it's 2 units away, correct? Now, what if I asked you how far is 2 away from zero on the number line? Well, if you start at 2 and you move to zero, that's 2 units away. So notice I did not say that is -2 units away, right? Because anytime we're talking about distance, we never use negative, it's always positive, right? So, for example, you won't ever say, well, the bank is -2 miles away from my home, right? So, that's what I meant by the absolute value is always positive or even zero. Now, take a look here. So, we have the absolute value of -2. The absolute value of -2 is +2, right? And these bars here just simply represent absolute value, or that's the symbol for absolute value, okay? And then let's take a look here. The absolute value of 2 is +2, right? So now when you take a look at this negative absolute value here, to find the absolute value of a negative number, all you're really doing is dropping the minus sign. That's it. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful to you. Now, what if I asked you what is the absolute value of zero? And you will say that the absolute value is zero. Okay, so with that being said, let's go over our rules, and there's 5 rules. Okay, all right, so where's the first? Oh, here it is. Okay, so rule number one. Rule number one states the sum of zero and any number is that number. All right. So if you have, let's say, 0 plus 9, right? That's equal to 9, correct? And let's reverse those numbers. 9 plus 0 still gives you 9. Okay. So easy enough. Now, what about rule number two? Rule number two simply states the sum of a number and its opposite is zero. So, for example, if you have 2 plus -2, that's equal to zero, right? And if you have, let's say, -3 plus +3, that's equal to zero, all right? And if you notice here, we have a +2, we have a -2, so it's equal to zero, right? So really, all you're saying is 2 minus 2 is equal to zero. Same with -3, we have a -3, we have a +3. So this also equals zero, okay? So that's what it means by the sum of a number and its opposite is equal to zero, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and move on to rule number 3. All right, so rule number 3 simply states to add two non-zero numbers with the same sign, add their absolute values, and give the resulting number the same sign. So really all this is saying is that, for example, is if you have, let me see, 2 plus 4, that's equal to 6, right? And it's equal to +6 because both numbers have a positive sign, right? So we have a positive 2 and it's a positive 4. So when you add them together, it results in positive 6. All right, now let's say that you have, and I'm just going to use the opposites of these numbers. So negative 2 plus negative 4, right? So all you're doing is adding these two numbers together, right? So 2 plus 4 is 6. However, if you notice, they both have a negative sign, right? So that means our answer is also going to be negative, okay? So an easy way to look at this is that when you are adding a negative with another negative, your answer is going to yield a negative result, okay? So that's all that really means. All right, so let's go on to rule number 4. And rule number 4 states to add two non-zero numbers that have opposite signs, subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value and give the resulting number the same, or give the resulting number the same sign as the greater absolute value. Okay? So in other words, if you have 6 plus negative 3, that's equal to 3, right? And let's say if you have negative 9 plus 2, this is equal to negative 7. All right, so let's go ahead and explain what's going on here. So here, I'm taking the smaller absolute value of negative 3 and I'm subtracting it from 6, right? And remember the absolute value of negative 3 is just simply 3, right? So just make believe you're subtracting, right? And anyway, you can do that technically because this plus minus is really saying that you're subtracting the numbers, okay? All right, so 6 minus 3 is equal to 3. And notice it's positive 3. And the reason why it is a positive 3 is because our greater absolute value is 6. Okay? Now, take a look at negative 9 plus 2. And of course, we have a negative answer, right? And the reason why that is because we've attached the negative sign where we've used the greater absolute value, right? Which is negative 9. So therefore, our answer will result in a negative answer, which is negative 7. Okay? So hopefully that was helpful. And another thing I would like to say about this is that just think of it this way. When you have opposite signs, you're going to subtract, right? So the sign is always going to be the same as the number with the greater absolute value. Okay, so that's all this rule is really saying. All right. Okay, so hopefully that's making some sense. And let's go over to our last rule, which is rule number 5. Okay, so for rule number 5, it says to subtract one number from another, add the opposite of the second number to the first number. So let's say that you're given, and I'm going to show this by an example, negative 6 minus negative 4. Okay, and this is actually equal to negative 2. All right, so really what I like to tell students is take a look at these two negatives. They're right beside each other. So when you see it like this, a negative of a negative simply means positive, right? So this is really negative 6 plus 4, okay? And this is equal to negative 2. All right. Now let's say that you're given, let's see, 2 minus 4, right? Or actually, you know what? Let me also state that actually want to show an example of what this rule is really saying. I mean, it's fine for you to know that a negative of a negative is a positive, but let me show you why this rule is written this way. Because if you take -6, right, you're going to leave the first number the same, and you're going to add the opposite of the second number, okay? So in other words, this negative will turn into a positive, right? And then since this is -4, this is +4. All right, so you see how these are both the same. So that's what this rule is saying. And I'm sorry if I didn't mention that sooner. All right, so now let's take a look at 2 minus 4. So you're doing the same thing, right? So you take the 2, leave it the same, and you're going to turn this minus into a positive. And the opposite of +4 is -4. So as you can see, you'll end up with the same result of -2 because you're subtracting the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value, and you're giving the same sign as the greater absolute value in your answer. Okay? All right. So another thing is to demonstrate this with a number line. Okay? Because students would ask, okay, well, how does this work? Why does this work? And a negative of a negative is equal to a positive. And I think this is better explained by using a number line. So let me go ahead and show you that really quickly. All right, so let's just go ahead and place a few numbers up here. And let's see. Okay, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and we have -1, -2, and -3. All right, so let's say that you were given a problem like 3 minus -2. All right, so you already know that negative of a negative is a positive, so it can be rewritten as 3 plus 2, right? And we all know 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. All right, so now if I asked you, what is the distance between 3 and -2 on the number line? What would you say? So let's go ahead and mark those points. All right, so the distance between 3 and -2 on a number line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units away, right? So that's why this is positive, all right, because you're adding 3 plus 2, or 3 minus -2 is equal to 5. All right, so hopefully this was helpful to you. If it didn't make sense in the beginning, be sure to rewatch the video if you need to. Sometimes it comes when you watch it a second or third time. All right, so thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.